as we build this plug on the other side of this door, right here, there's a gap. And you measure your gap all the way around because the XPS is going to fit inside this door frame. You're going to pull it towards yourself. So you don't want the measurement from the outsides.
Inside.
You want it on the inside over here, so that as you pull it this direction and tighten it, it's nice and flush and have a good seal up against the felt. And don't be scared to measure more than one time to make sure you have the right measurements. Because if you cut it too short, you can't make it bigger. If you cut it too big, that's all right, because we can always trim it a little bit to make it fit. He's just wiping that down so we get good adhesion with the felt. All right, so now Miguel is measuring out the felt so that it's the right length. You can use a tape measure if you want, or you can do it this way, which I feel is faster. Just measure it, mark it with your finger, and then cut it with scissors, or in this case, a razor knife, and then stick it on. Make sure you do not pull the felt because it will stretch, and then as time goes by, it will shrink back and pull itself off of the wall and fall down. Same process for all four sides. And then we will move outside to keep the mess to a minimum in the house, measuring out the measurements. And he will score a line. It's a really light cut. You don't need to go super deep on the first one. You're mostly just making a path for your next cut. Because the next cuts, if that's done right, will follow along in the same groove. Then you can go deeper and deeper each time. You need to be careful with the XPS, because when you buy it, it has these pre-scored lines that go through both sides. When you're snapping it, make sure you have cut yours good enough, or it'll snap at the wrong line. So.
Always, before to cut this shirt, grab your tape measure and check if everything is okay. Once you cut it, it's too late.
Measure twice, cut once is the saying. Now that we have the initial cuts done, we will take it back up to the space, do a test fit, and as you can see, even with measuring a couple of times, sometimes they're just big and they don't fit. Now we'll trim it so that it fits. Okay, now that we have the XPS trimmed so it fits flush in the door, we will be putting the OSB, or in this case, the sheathing, the plywood, on the back. The center will be for a handle, so that you can pull it tight while you're wrapping up the stuff, so it's nice and secure, and that way the paracord will not rip through your XPS. And we have the boards, we cut them to length so that they aren't overhanging, so it fits nice and snug.
If you guys see these notches we cut here, is because we got some trusses on the way, so for sure you don't want to cut those trusses. You prefer to cut these kind of notches instead to cut the trusses.
Yeah, don't cut trusses. It's bad. So if you're making this, only cut your XPS. Don't cut parts of the house off. And you glue the wood to the XPS with the door and window foam.
Right. And check it maybe before to use it.
As you can see, we're doing this outside. Do not spray this foam inside the customer's house, because if you're not careful, it'll shoot out of the gun, hit the XPS, bounce off of it, and land on the carpet or on their nice wood floors or their tile. We don't want that. So we do all our gluing outside so that if it bounces off, it just lands on the cement or, in this case, dirt and grass.
You can put a little bit here, a tiny bit, just like this. Okay, that will help.
Keep it a little bit away from the edge too, just in case. Just a tiny, tiny little bit away from the edge. See, like this part was hanging over, and we don't want that because if it hangs over, it can get in the way of things.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind as you're pushing this down. It will have a tendency to move around and slide. And as the foam dries, it expands. It will try to move this around. You're definitely going to want to have weight on these things because it likes to lift. And if anything has a slight bend in it, it will help it stay glued down. If for some reason there's not enough glue on there the first time, like on this one, don't be afraid to just pull it off. Put more stuff on there because it's just going to fall off otherwise. And now he is gluing on the back plate for the handle. Having a squeeze out like that is fine on the insides, but if it starts to squeeze out along the edges here, once it's dry, you want to trim it back with your razor knife so that it will still fit flush inside the opening. All right, so in order to attach the plug to the door, we will be using paracord and these little S tie down things. When you put them in the door, you're going to want one near the top, near the top here, one near the bottom, and one in the center, so that you can pull the top and bottom snug and of course keep the centers near. You'll also want to use, I'm using drywall screws, but you can use anything. It just needs to have that style of head so it fits nice and flush inside there. Used a little bit of tape in the center to tape them to the wall where I want them. Step back and look at them and make sure that they're visually, centered. And I tried to leave enough room so that when the XPS touches up to here, you still have room to move the rope around its course without running into the XPS and making it harder or into something like this. But the tape will hold it there also. It makes it easier when you're putting them in by yourself. Just holds everything in place. Once I had put these three in visually to look nice, I then measured from the top of there to the top of that one and used it for the same over here. Measure from the top to there and then put the top of it there, taped it, and I did that for that one from the bottom to the bottom, and then this one in the middle I did from the bottom to the bottom of the frame. Okay, so here I have already done the handle where I put it through, knotted it, and as you see with the paracord, when you cut it, it gets all frayed up like this. So you'll take your lighter and you'll melt this and smoosh it down so that it doesn't fray anymore. Now, since we have the handle, in order to get the holes in the right spot for the paracord, we're bringing it up and we're going to fit it in. All right, so we want the string to come out around the top, S through here, and get pulled out there. So I'll mark it for the hole. All right, so I know I didn't film it, but I cut these to length. We tied knots, melted and shaped those so that they'd go through the holes easy. Put a pretty big knot on there so it doesn't pull through the hole. Over the top around, like that. on 950,000 steps.